introduce you to my friend Julie Greene. Julie is a Tennessee girl. Julie,
Yeah.
did you always live in Tennessee?
Yes, I sure have.
Yes, and she is a Tennessee Vols fan from start to finish, and
Mm.
she is just an all-around sweetheart. And she's a certified life coach and has a practice now working in association with a therapist. Am I right about that?
Yes, I have an office with a local counseling practice where I get to take coaching out into the world. It's wonderful.
And I'm sure you're blessing the socks off of anyone who gets to work with you. So Julie and I became friends because she was in my cohort when I got certified as a life coach. And we've just bonded and just I just love her. And I cannot wait for you to get to know her. And she's going to talk to us today about several different things, but mainly focusing on her love of the Enneagram and how that has been an important part of her understanding herself and her clients. But before we get into that, Julie, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, I am married. We have been married for 28 years to my high school sweetheart, and we have three children. My oldest is a first year medical student, and she got married this past summer, and we love our new son-in-law. So my family grew by one member last year. My son is a sophomore at the University of Tennessee, and my youngest daughter is a sophomore in high school. So three very distinctly different seasons of life for them, and I love being a mom. And I love getting to be a coach too.
Yes, yes. So tell us a little bit about how coaching works for you, and then we'll get into the Enneagram.
So I have the distinct privilege of being a part of a local counseling office here in Knoxville. And coaching and counseling go hand in hand, in my opinion. And so to be able to be at that office and take these principles out into the world, a lot of people don't know about coaching. And so when you think about, we become very articulate about the things in our life, maybe that we bump up against, but coaching, now what do we do with it? I love the forward motion of that. And I love seeing redemption. It's
Mm.
everything in the world is to see redemption in real time. And, when someone comes to the coaching or the counseling office, they come with a desire to change. Um, Sometimes we look at other people in our life and think they should change. And you don't change unless someone doesn't change unless they want to. And
Can't do
so,
that for anybody, can you?
no. So the redemptive nature of all of it is just life-giving. So.
Um, so I talked to a psychologist in our community. She has her PhD, and
Mhm.
she told me she had a waiting list of like, I think it was 80 people at the time that I talked to her.
Wow.
And yeah, and we talked about the fact that some people need flat out counseling. They need to
Absolutely.
talk about the past and all that. But some people really could just benefit from coaching. So I bet that this is going to work out really well with the coaching and the therapy in the same office. So I'm excited for you. I was going to tell you, uh, over the weekend, I watched on Peacock. There's a series now called Apple Doesn't Fall, and
Oh,
it's based on a book by Leanne. I think it's Leanne Moriarty, which I read the book. It was good. I love her books.
uh-huh.
But anyway, in this TV series, one of the daughters who does not have her life together
Uh-huh.
has decided she wants to be a life coach, and it just it just totally cracked me up. But you know
No.
what? Even as her character on that show, I was drawn to her because she was accepting of people. She
Mhm.
would listen to people's story. She was non-judgmental.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody needs a life coach. I 100% believe it. I need a life
Same.
coach.
Me too. I do. Yeah.
Okay, so good. Okay, so Julie is I called her an Enneagram expert before, and she said that she's not an Enneagram expert, but she's a student of the Enneagram.
Yes.
And I personally found out about the Enneagram, it was before COVID, so maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Mhm.
And what I learned, I feel like God used big time in my own spiritual transformation.
Yeah.
And when I found out that Julie loved it too, I thought, okay, I want to learn from her. She knows so much more about it than I do. And I wanted her to share it with you guys. So give us a little down and dirty about the Enneagram and how it's been important to you and why you think it matters for people to know.
Yes. So thank you for letting me get to talk about one of my favorite things in the world, and that's Enneagram.
Yay.
I do want to say before we get too far into it, I know for some people, they are fearful of the Enneagram and are concerned maybe about its roots and its worldview that's baked into that. And I will just say this: I'm a follower of Christ, and my faith is so important to me. And the Enneagram has been a tool that has made my growth at an exponential rate. If you trace the origins of the Enneagram, there is some evidence that it was originated with the Desert Fathers, and that was going to be 300 AD. So,
Some people might not know what you mean by desert fathers. So could you tell them?
the Desert Fathers they pulled away when the official religion became Christianity and of Rome. And so they felt like that was cheapening maybe their walk, is because it was forced on people. And so they pulled away and went off into the desert. And a lot of people believe that's where monasteries originated. So it has roots in a pureness about seeking the faith. If you've ever been sat with a spiritual director, a lot of the times they're going to be pulling from writings that would have originated. And anyway, it's a very pure sense of following Christ. So I will say, not everyone who loves the Enneagram and has written about the Enneagram shares the worldview that I do. But I will say the enemy distorts, right?
Mhm.
And so, in its purity, what it's given me is the ability to have compassion for myself and compassion for others. And if that doesn't sound like the gospel, I don't know what is.
Exactly. So
But but the
go
reason I
ahead.
was first drawn to it is years ago, I found a quote. And this quote became my guiding principle in parenting. And the quote it's from Max Lucado, and it is: children are not books that are meant to be written. They're books that are meant to be read.
Mm.
And so I tucked that away. It was years before I even had my first child. And after you get over the initial feeding schedule, napping, diapering, all of that, and then you see in front of you, there is this personality and these mannerisms and this life. Was reminded of that quote: it's not my job to write onto my child who they are. It is my job to read what God already put in motion and then steward that so that they can
Mm.
take place in the world. And so, what the Enneagram says is you were wired this way. Okay. And all Enneagram means is there's 9 ways of seeing. Okay. So Ennea means 9, gram means map or drawing. And so it is just 9 ways of seeing the world. So you can imagine if you put 9 people in the same room and you all gave them different color of sunglasses with different color of lens. So someone might have a blue lens, an amber lens, a pink lens. They're going to be looking at a tree or a dog, but it's going to be a different color because of the lens that they have on. It's still a dog, right? But
Mhm.
they are seeing it differently. And so A lot of people also want to say, oh, it's much more complex. People can't be reduced to 9 things. So baked into the Enneagram, it's quite simple, but it's actually elegant because baked into the Enneagram, you're going to have, if you look at the diagram, where your number sits on the Enneagram, you're going to have 2 numbers on either side, and those are called your wings. And just like a bird needs 2 wings to fly, you need to um, utilize both of those wings. Now, I don't stop being who I am. I'm just using behavioral patterns of that to still be me, if that makes sense. And then you have a number in stress and a number in strength. So, like I say, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's way more than just I'm a number. There's so much depth to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to figure out what so there are 9 numbers, and each number represents a way of seeing the world.
Yes. Yes. And so let me
So,
point out,
yeah, go ahead.
one of the things I want to point out is you can't change what you see. Okay. So the Enneagram is not about changing how you see something, it's recognizing that you can change what you do with it.
So
Okay.
none of the numbers are better than another.
No, they're not better. Now, if you hear a description of one and it really bothers you, chances are that's your number. Okay. Because what is also true of the Enneagram is the best of you, the best part of you is also the worst part of you. And so when we get out of balance, right, and we kind of pile on our personality is how we make our way in the world. And so we pile on and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so when you learn the Enneagram, you can learn how to let some of that fall away. Not make it go away, but let it fall away. Does that make sense?
It does. So let me clarify. So I'm a 2 on the Enneagram. And
Mhm.
as my spirit is formed more and more and more and more towards Christ likeness, which is what the scripture tells us
Mhm.
is going to happen as we come as baby believers, and here we are, and then God starts to develop the fruit of the spirit in us.
Mhm.
So I will become more and more and more my true self when I learn to let certain things, certain ways of operating in the world fall away.
Yes.
And
And something
okay,
to remember, your personality isn't really who you are. Okay? It's not your essence. It's not your true self. It's how you've made your way and how you make your way in the world. And
so it's
so
how you've learned to navigate when bad things have happened, to get your
mhm,
needs met.
mhm, yes. And what Enneagram is based on motive. Okay? Why you are doing what you do, not necessarily your behaviors. Okay.
Okay.
What that means is you and I just happen to know we're different Enneagram numbers. You
Mm-hmm.
and I are going to we might do the same thing. Okay. The same exact thing behaviorally, but we are doing it for a different reason. Okay. So as an Enneagram 2, the uh, quick 1 word equivalency of the 2 is the helper. Okay. And the 9 is a peacemaker. Okay. So you can see underneath that, you might do something for someone else that is helping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And might do something for someone else that I think is making peace. And so a lot of people get frustrated, I can't say it enough. The Enneagram is simple and elegant. Okay. So the elegant piece of it, you are not going to sit down in 30 minutes and be able to understand the Enneagram. And a lot of people lose their patience with it, right? They just don't want to invest that kind of time. But if you do invest the time, what's also baked into the Enneagram is a map for your growth. So it's not enough to just say, oh, I'm a 9, right? Hear me roar. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. It's showing me how I can become more of my true self, right? And it's showing me when parts of me really get in the way of being how I want to be. Like I can't get out. I what am I trying to say? I can't get out of my own way. There we go. I can't get out of my own way. And so when you begin to learn, this is what the different numbers are about. Okay. And this is what they're seeking to do or achieve or feel. Then to me, when I understand myself, right? And then if you are doing something, maybe that's not the way I would do it. When I understand why you're doing what you're doing, I have so much more compassion and understanding and empathy for that, if that makes sense.
It does. So I just, when I first learned about the Enneagram, I thought, wow, if everybody in the church would learn who they are,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it would give you so much more compassion towards the other people that God has put in your life to
Sure.
understand and work together.
Yeah. And when I said it first started for me in my own home. So I'm married and at the time had 3 children living in my house. We are all 5 different numbers. So
So
you can,
nobody's the same.
not at all, not at all. So when I say something to one of my children, it's going to imply something totally different to my other child. And so again,
Because
going
of the lens that they
right,
see the
that's the
world.
way that they see it. Right. And so um, it just was really important to me, like I said, with that original quote. I really wanted to read who they were and not try to write on them, this is how you have to be. So it just is the way God works, right? I tried that, but he threw in on top of that all this understanding and richness. And what I found is you can really learn to love yourself, right? And if you love yourself, then you're freed up to love everyone God puts in your life.
Mm.
Uh, so again, the redemption that's in it is what I love so much. Now, one of the things that I would say, a lot of times people are like, I just want to take a test, right? Let me just take a test and be done with it. The tests are typically going to measure behaviors. It's very hard to have a test that's really getting to why you're doing it. So when you take a test, take it with a grain of salt. For me, I don't usually test as a 9
Oh,
because,
really?
yeah, because I am very keenly aware of societal norms and what I should be saying. And because I'm a 9,
Mm.
I can easily go along with that. So I don't always test as a 9. That was a real confusing part of this for me is I just wanted to know what I was, and I kept getting different answers. I said before, you also have a strength number and a stress number or stress point. And so if I'm super stressed and I take that Enneagram test, I probably am going to test more as my stress number than I am my true self. So that's a long way of saying if you take a test, take it with a grain of salt and use it to help you narrow down what number you are. A great one that I think for free is Truity, truity.com, truity.com.
And
And
we'll put a link in the show notes
and
to
so they
that.
have a free test that you can take. And again, I think the results end up being somewhat like a pie chart, and they can show you you're tending to lean more towards this number. And then that's a great way to start to really get in there and begin to understand which one is you. So again, it's about motive, okay? And what you are, this need that you have and how you're seeking to have it met. Okay. And one of the ways that I like to teach it to begin to narrow it down is it has some smaller ways, if you will, to begin to understand it. So there are 9 numbers. Okay. There are 3 centers of intelligence. Okay. And sometimes Enneagram teachers will call those triads. But underneath 3 big pillars are 3 numbers. Okay. So when you begin to learn what the center of intelligence is saying is when you walk into a room, how do you immediately process information? Now, everyone has all 3. What the center of intelligence concept is teaching is you have one of them as dominant. Okay. So the 3 centers of intelligence would be thinking, feeling, and doing. So, Susan, when you as a 2 walk into the room, the first question that comes to mind is, or your response to the information that you're presented with is, what do I feel about this?
Mhm.
When I walk
Yeah.
into the room, first thing that comes to mind is, what do I need to do? What needs to be done? Doesn't mean that I don't have feelings about it. I do. And for me, those are secondary.
So is it, what do I need to do to make this feel peaceful for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so again, you also think about what you need to do, okay? But that's your secondary support center. Okay? So that's how you and I can be in the same room and have very different experiences.
Mhm.
Okay? And so when you learn about the Enneagram, what you want to do is you want to put those things in balance. So thinking, feeling, doing, right? So I want all of those. And all of those are available to me if I know how to access them. So there's the heart center or the feeling triad. And so we'll start with you. Okay. So in that they're going to respond to the world by saying, what do I feel? And they act on what their feelings tell them to do. So those are going to be the Enneagram numbers 2s, 3s, and 4s. Okay. Now, they're all going to struggle with some of the same things, but they're going to address it differently. So the 2s, 3s, and 4s, their emotional struggle is shame or comparison, if you want to use that word instead. And they want to have a significant identity. Okay. And they're going to, the way they think about what they feel, because their point of reference is outside of themselves, it's other people. And I'm guessing, Susan, as a good 2 would, you're going to go back and forth between connection with people and but also then believing that you are likable and lovable and kind of back and forth and back and forth.
Because the motivation of a 2 is seeking
To
love,
feel loved. Mm-hmm.
to feel loved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how I enter
Right.
situations.
And so you can see again, when we said the best part of you is also the worst part of you, you can see how you actually see people. You're very aware of, when Jesus says he leaves the 99 for the one, that probably resonates very strongly with you. You would leave 99 for the one.
And I'm
And
hoping that he would leave the 99 for me.
absolutely. Absolutely. But then you can see how that can become a distraction sometimes
It can
because,
become major people pleasing.
right. Okay. So the heart center, right? That's what do I feel? Okay. Then you're going to have the head center. And those are Enneagram numbers 5s, 6s, and 7s. And what their first thing that comes into their brain when they walk into a room is, what do I think about this? It's not what I feel. It's what do I think? And actually, feeling is the last thing. But they are analyzing things, like using critical thinking skills. They're observing, perceiving, analyzing. Now, their emotional struggle is fear. And that could be anxiety or anticipation. So if you talk to an Enneagram 7, they're the fun loving, the world is my oyster kind of folks. They would say, I'm not struggling with fear. So anticipation may be a better word in that moment. But it is the 7 wants to make sure that they always keep their options open, right? And they're scanning for those kind of things. They tend to focus more on strategies and beliefs. And then the other is the gut triad. And that's the instinctual or the body. Okay. And those are 8s, 9s, and 1s. And so the first thing that they do when they walk in is, what are we going to do here? What needs to be done? And so based on which number you are, the 1 is the reformer. They get things right. Okay.
So
Now I want
they're scanning the room to see what needs to be improved.
right. And often what comes to them first is what's wrong. So they're going to point out a lot of problems. Um, Now I'm more concerned about what do we need to do for this to be a peaceful environment. Whether that be relationally, like I can already see where potential conflict might be between people. But I am very aware of what needs to be done. Now, as an Enneagram, so the 8s, 9s, and 1s are there. Okay. The 8 is going to see that too, and then they're going to do it. Okay. I don't do it. I just know what needs to be done, and I think someone else will probably handle it.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, yes. And so our emotional struggle is anger.
Okay, so we have shame, fear, and anger.
Yes. It doesn't mean that I don't struggle with shame, because I do. It doesn't mean that I don't struggle with fear, because I do. But anger, or better said for me, resentment is my struggle. Okay. Now, our common desire is justice. The heart center, their common desire is significant identity. And the head center, their common desire is security. So when you think
So if they
about
could get everything fixed, they could feel secure.
right, right. So when you think about these 3 different pillars, if you will, the Center for Intelligence, then underneath those numbers, you can kind of narrow that down. So the heart stuff resonated with you. We happen to know you're a 2, but if you didn't know that, the heart stuff really resonates with you. So in my mind, I would think, okay, that's 2s, 3s, and 4s. I just need to hold on to that, and then put this other layer of learning on top of it to help me eliminate which one am I really. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes,
So
it
then
does.
underneath that are your stances. Okay. That's your habitual pattern way of responding to the world. It's how you carry yourself. It's most obvious under stress, but it's just what you do. And when in coaching, when we talk about those autopilot thoughts, your stance is you in autopilot. Absolutely.
So just what you normally revert to as far as thinking and feeling and doing is your
Right.
stance. Okay.
So the aggressive stance or assertive, okay, you can use those words interchangeably. They're going to move against people and take action to get the needs met. So they're very future oriented with their goals, with satisfaction, or with their agenda. Now, what they do is they misuse or underuse the feeling center.
Okay.
So if I'm coaching or working with someone who's in the assertive or aggressive stance, a really great question to ask them to pause is, what are you feeling right now? Now, if I ask you, Susan, that, you can give me a real quick answer of what you're feeling. but that's
But
not
one
as
thing I've noticed, yeah, one thing I've noticed about myself though, before I did all this coaching work, was that I could often tell other people what they were feeling, but I had some trouble identifying what I was feeling.
yes, yes, yes. Okay, then there's the dependent stance. They're dutiful. So you as a 2 would be in this stance. That's 1s, 2s, and 6s. So they're going to move towards people, not against them, towards them to meet their needs externally. They're very present tense oriented. And so the 1 is oriented towards righteousness and autonomy. The 2 is oriented to attention and approval. And the 3, or excuse me, the 6 is about safety and security. So you're going to move towards somebody, right? But for you, it's about attention and approval.
Because I want to be loved.
Right, right. And sometimes you might love people so that you feel loved, right?
Mhm.
But then when you understand really who you are, right? That's not your true self. Then it
Right.
opens up, you can freely love. You can freely love. And if they
Mm-hmm.
choose to receive it, they do, right? So,
Right.
but what the dependent stance or the dutiful stance is, they're going to misuse or underuse the thinking center. And so it doesn't mean that you don't think. You think all the time. But what I would say is it's probably not productive thinking.
Mm.
And so for you, you're probably thinking a lot about relationships, a lot.
Yes.
Maybe also in a thought loop. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a 6 is not really thinking about the relationship per se. They're thinking more about the safety and security and kind of getting out in front of potential danger. Um, so if you're working with someone in the dutiful stance or the dependent stance, then the great question is, what are you thinking? And so then we can really analyze that. Is that productive? Does that thought serve you? Is that really who you want to be?
Is it true? That's a question I have to ask myself. Is this even true?
Right. And then the other stance is the withdrawn. Okay. And that's the 4, 5s, and the 9s. And they're actually going to move away from people and turn inward. And the reason that they're doing that is they think they can find the answers inside themselves. Okay.
Mm.
So when the 4 is stressed and they go inward, they feel like something's lacking, right? And so they turn inward. The 5, they feel if there's a sense of personal inadequacy, they're going to turn inward to refuel. And the 9, if there's distress and discomfort, they're going to turn inward. And so you can see, like, if you don't know that about me, right? And you as a 2 are wanting to move towards me, and I'm really needing to go inward, you can think that that is some big statement about me or what I think about you, or
I
if I
take it
value
as rejection.
it, right? When it has nothing to do with you. It has
Right.
everything to do with how I need to recenter. Okay.
Mhm.
But the question for them is, what are you doing about it? Right? Because the 4s, 5s, and 9s, we can talk about stuff for a really long time and never actually do it.
Mm.
Um, and I think about a milestone in my life and my childhood best friend. She happens to be an Enneagram 5. And I was saying something, and to be honest, it was probably 20th verse, same as the first. And she usually is very patient with my need to say something over and over and over. But I'm ruminating on it, okay? When I'm stressed. Okay.
Mhm.
She just looked at me and said, okay, what are we going to do about it? And that was the moment that really got hold of me, and it made me actually do something about it. But had she not said that, it would have taken me a lot longer to get there on my own. So
Mm.
we were designed to live in community, right? We were never designed to live alone. So
No.
the beauty of that, I don't know if she knew. She's very intuitive. Did she know that as an Enneagram 9, I need you to say this to me? I don't know. But that moment when she said it, that was more inspiring to me than all these books I've read, all these podcasts I've listened to. It was just that moment that brought everything into focus. And so it was, what are we going to do about it?
Which stirred you to action.
Yes. Yes. So when you think you got your three centers of intelligence, heart, head, gut, okay. And then, so we've narrowed it down. And then you look at the stances. And so then at that point, through a process of elimination, you probably got one or two numbers. Okay. And then as a 9, because I have the ability, because I desire peace, right? I can become things that people need me to become. Okay.
Mm.
And
so you can kind of morph into what people want you to be.
Yes. Yes. So it was really hard for me to figure out exactly which number because I could kind of see myself in all of it. But that's very much 9 language. Okay. I didn't realize that I was actually solidifying I'm a 9 by even making that statement. But you do have a wing, right? And I have so that's the number that's on either side of you on the Enneagram. So as a 9, on either side of me is a 1 and an 8. Okay. And so the 1, so if you think about it, the 9 is in the withdrawing stance. Okay. But I have a wing of a 1, which is in the dependent stance. But I have a wing of an 8, which is in the aggressive or assertive stance. So I know what it's like to be in all of those. Now, I don't stop being a 9, okay, but I will do behaviors that look more like a 1 to get my needs met, which are peace. So think about it is when I have a very strong 1 wing, okay, does it mean that I'm a 1? Okay, it just means that I might do 1 type behaviors to get my needs met as a 9. Okay, and that's easy for me in this world because of rules and right, wrong, left, right. That's easy for me to do. Now, so just like you are dominant with your right hand or left hand, I'm dominant with that 1 wing. But for growth, I need to develop my 8 wing. And whereas the 8 wing is going to move towards things, and it is my number 1 is to go within. I'm going to be more withdrawn at first. So sometimes I think the best way for me to explain this is the growth that I've learned is I spent a lot of my life being a peacekeeper. I want to be a peacemaker. Okay. And so the peacemaker is going to have more of an active stance, right? So I'm going to have to enter into conflict to be a peacemaker.
You're going to
Whereas
have to do the hard thing.
Right. But if I'm a peacekeeper, I don't have to do that. I can just not be a part of that or not engage in the conflict. So that 8 wing, right, that I needed to develop to be more whole, to be more fully of who I am, that helped me see, oh yeah, sometimes conflict is really good. So on the other side of it, the peacemaking, that resembles more of who Christ is versus peacekeeping.
Yeah, because he was not a peacekeeper.
No.
If he was, he would have gone along with the Pharisees and tried not to ruffle feathers and all that.
Right.
And he didn't.
When you learn more about it, right, you learn that within your number, we're pretty much in average space most of the time. And by average, I just mean we live in our own understanding. It's our normal functioning. But when we move into more of that, the strength of our number or healthy, when we live as beloved of God, and our identity is in Christ, that's so much more powerful than me and just my own understanding. And then in moments of stress, I'm going to slip down and be more unhealthy, right? And that is not aligned with who I am in Christ. And so you can begin to learn your blind spots, right? If you're on autopilot, you don't even realize you're doing it. And I kind of think of it as on a road when you're driving, the rumble strips on the side of the
Mm-hmm.
road, right? And so that wakes you back up of, hey, you're veering off the road. Well, you can learn that about your personality because when I'm living in the fullness of who I am, I'm very engaged. But if
Mm,
I'm not engaged and I'm kind of doing my own thing, that needs to be a rumble strip for me of,
mm-hmm.
hey, wait, what's going on? Um, and again, when I know that this is in me, right, then I can have compassion. I don't have to make it mean anything. It's just an awareness of, oh, wait, I'm there I go again, kind of doing what I do.
Right. And maybe we can say, okay, time to reset, time
Mm-hmm,
to remember what I know, who I am in
mm-hmm,
Christ, how he
mm-hmm,
has made me,
mm-hmm.
because we need people from every number for the world to operate.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the design, is there is no
Mm-hmm.
more value in any number than the other. Now, there are some environments maybe that we might be in that might elevate another number over one, but in their truest sense, no, they're all needed. They're all wonderful. And as I'm saying that, just think about the different people in your life who are just see the world different. And
Mm-hmm.
that compassion and understanding is the starting point for that redemptive love.
Yeah. So to me, this is all kind of fits under the umbrella of asking the Father to show me,
Yes.
show me my strengths,
Uh-huh.
show me my weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
show me the way, show me the way to me.
Right. Right. And
And
then
this,
show me the way to others.
because it all goes back to the great commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself.
Yes. And the beautiful attributes of you, Susan, and who you are. If I'm secure in who I am, right? And I'm not trying to change who I am, I'm recognizing places I can grow, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this is just how God made me, right? Then I can experience you in the fullness of who you are, right? And so I can learn to see the world through your color glasses. And it just enhances everything around you.
Yeah. And we can stop wanting or thinking that it would be better to be somebody else or to, I wish I were like her.
Yes,
No,
yes, yes.
be
Everything,
happy.
yes,
Yes,
everything belongs.
everything belongs. So good. So good. And I think what you said about when you read about a number and it makes you uncomfortable or feel
Yep.
icky or whatever, then that's maybe a sign that that's your number.
Yes. Because just think about it. We're aware, right? I'm aware of what I get wrong. Probably way more aware of what I get wrong than you're aware of what I get
Mm,
wrong.
mm-hmm.
So the brain, that negativity in the brain. So when you're hearing about the numbers and the different descriptions, we tend to latch on to that negative piece about it. And just know that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then take a magnifying glass out, look a little deeper. Um, and now there are two numbers, excuse me, because of that would go about doing things differently than I would. A number might get on your nerves, right? But if there's one that just really ugh, it gets to you, that's probably
Yeah.
a good
You
indication that could be your number.
yeah, you probably know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a 9 with that leans more heavily on your 1 wing, and you're developing the 8 wing.
Yes. And I would say the last few years of my life have been an intense development of that 8 wing. Yes. And there's different schools of thought about it, right? There's some people, um, I have appreciated and loved learning from Suzanne Stabile. Okay. And in Enneagram world, she's affectionately known as the Enneagram godmother. And I heard Suzanne say that there is an idea that the first half of your life, you are dominant with one wing, and then the second half of your life, you develop the other. And I don't think that necessarily means like once you hit 50, but you're
Mhm.
just like a right hand, left hand. I was predisposed to probably go about it with the one wing, right? But when we are seeking to grow and we're seeking maturity, we're going to develop that other wing probably quicker than just hitting 50.
Mhm.
But I can see in my life different moments of really asserting myself, and I felt unsure about it, but that was really my 8 wing. And so that's not my normal operating system, right? But
Mhm.
if something I know is right and good and true, I will enter into the justice seeking of that. But
Mhm.
um, but there's some people who just live there all the time.
Yeah.
That's just their MO.
Yeah, which can cause them problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so quickly as we end this, I think it might be helpful if can we just name the number, and you
Mhm.
don't have to give a full-blown thing about them, but
No. Yeah, we can easily do that. You can kind of hear it, and after
so
thinking about the
might
stances.
make them curious to go look.
Yes. Okay, so the Enneagram 1 is often referred to as the reformer. Okay, and their core desire is to have integrity and to be good. Now, they've got a core fear of being imperfect or bad or wrong. And so, this longing inside them is to know that they are good. And so, they're going to have a focus of attention about whether things are right or wrong, because that core longing inside of them, that's drives that focus of attention. Okay. The Enneagram 2 is the helper, and they have a desire to be loved, appreciated, and wanted. They have a fear of being unworthy or rejected. Their longing is to know that they are wanted and loved for who they are. And so their focus is going to be on relationships of what others need, but also what others think of them.
Mhm.
The 3 is the achiever. Their core desire is to be valued. Their fear is being worthless or incompetent or inefficient, and they want to know that they are loved for who they are. Um, Whereas the 2 was you're wanted, and then theirs is you are loved. The focus is being perceived as successful, approved of, and getting things done. Um, the 4 is the individualist. They desire to be unique. And their fear is that they have no real identity or significance, or that they're inadequate. And they're longing to be seen and accepted for who they are. And their focus is their internal world. Okay. And the connection and the disconnection with others, they're often aware of what's missing in a situation. They also are very concerned with aesthetics, and the aspects of their environment. The 5 is the thinker. That's my husband, and he's the architect of great plans all the time.
Mhm.
Uh, Their desire is to be competent. Okay. And their fear would be useless, incapable, or incompetent. And their longing is that their needs are not a problem. Um, they focus on intellectual pursuits and creating boundaries to maintain their privacy. So that's a 5. The 6 is the loyalist, and they want to be secure and supported. And their fear is fear, fear itself, um,
Mm.
to be without security or support. That is the fear of the 6. And so they want to know that they're safe and secure. And they're going to focus on detecting threats in their environment. And they're going to look for hidden motives in people, their secret agendas.
Are they not as trusting?
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct. Um, and one thing I've learned is the Enneagram 1 has a very loud inner critic. Okay. It's just constantly criticizing. And the Enneagram 6 has an inner committee. And
Mm.
a lot of the times, an Enneagram 6 will poll many, many, many people before they can make a decision. They probably have a subscription to Consumer Reports.
Okay.
Um, and if you think about it, the news of today is um, it's fear, danger. Like that's what the different news outlets are just selling fear.
Hmm.
And it's your definition of fear, right? Based on which side of the aisle you're on. But it's fear.
Right.
And so that will always sell because we can never really conquer that on this side
Yeah,
of
it's a great manipulator.
this. Yes. So that's for me as a 9. I move into 6 energy when I'm really stressed. So that's a rumble strip for me to know if I'm having to poll 10 people to make a decision about something, that's probably not my best self. It doesn't mean
Hmm.
that I don't like their opinion, I want to learn from them, but I can know when I'm getting outside of my lane and really more about what they think versus what I should
Hmm.
do. Okay, the 7 is the enthusiast, and their desire is to be happy and satisfied. Their fear is that they will be trapped in pain and that they will be deprived of something. And their longing is to know that they're going to be taken care of. Their focus is about fun, stimulating things to think about or do. They like to have lots of options. Pleasure and planning for the future is very much Enneagram 7. They're very fun. They're very fun.
Yes.
They are
Everyone
the
needs a 7 friend.
yes. The 8 is the protector. Okay. And their desire is to protect themselves and others. Their fear is that they could be controlled by someone
Mm.
um, or be harmed. Their longing is to know that they will not be betrayed. Their focus is going to be about creating order, seeing a big picture, noticing whether things are fair or not. And they often will control people and situations to make sure that that is taken care of. And then the 9, the peacemaker, that we have the desire to have inner stability and peace. And so I am constantly in conflict. I want my outward environment and my inward environment to be peaceful. So I will go along with things outwardly so that I can then tend to how it's really disrupting me internally. Um,
Mm.
our fear is about losing connection. It's about I don't want tension, I don't like conflict, and I don't want to feel fragmented. Okay. My longing, what I need to know is that my presence matters. And my focus is I'm going to often blend with or over adapt to others as a way of staying comfortable and out of conflict.
Mhm.
And you think as you listen to those, you probably have a little bit of all of that in you. So we're
Mhm.
really looking at your core motive. Okay. Because I can see some of myself in all of that. Every
Oh,
number.
yeah, me too. Me too.
And
I
it,
was thinking as you go through that, every one of those needs that's at the root of our behavior can only be met in Christ.
absolutely.
So
Right.
we have to keep going back to our good Father.
We do. Because if my longing is to know my presence matters, right? I can have 100 people tell me it's not going to land unless I know that through the miracle of the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
And I believe it. And then I take that into the world.
Yeah. Oh gosh. When I first learned I was a two, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be somebody that's so needy. But then God's, I mean, he's done a work in me for me to get my security in him, not
Yeah,
in other people and their reactions to me.
right. But I want to say the fact that you point out that the two is so needy, that's not what I think about when I think of the two.
Mm,
So you're drawn to the negative side of it, right? So when
yeah,
you think
yeah,
back, one of the ways to eliminate different numbers is when it really bothers you. Um,
yes.
so I don't think about that with the two. I think of the way of how thoughtful and intentional and consistent you are in thinking about others.
Mm,
And a lot of,
yeah.
I can be more selfish than that.
Isn't it interesting? Yeah,
Mhm.
so this is just all so fascinating. And I love the way that God can use this as another way to redeem us
Yeah.
willing,
Yes.
if we're willing to even consider.
Yes. And really, again, if you can learn it about yourself, right? We put the oxygen mask on ourselves and then we can learn about others. And it's probably not a great idea, though it's very hard for me not to begin to type people as I'm talking to them, but not in a way to have, and the reason I say that is only you really know why you're
Mhm.
doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah,
But the thing that I love about it is it just helps me expedite growth and connection with somebody because I understand the way they're hearing what I say. And as a coach, you want to hold space for somebody. And this way, you know what they need space for. Uh,
right.
and you can get there. You don't have to know the Enneagram to be able to hold space for somebody, but it's quicker. You go deeper faster.
Yeah,
And I think it's a richer connection.
it's a great tool.
Absolutely. Yes. And
It's a
it's just
great tool.
many tools. Yes.
Yeah, one of many. Okay, so Julie, I would love for you to send me like two or three books
Yeah.
that you think would be helpful. And
Mhm.
for you guys, whoever listens to this or watches this, if you have questions, would you send them to me? And maybe we can have Julie on again to answer questions. I would love that.
I would love that too.
Julie,
It's so
th-
fun to like put flesh on it and just talk it
yeah,
out.
and I think it'd also be good to talk about how this can help with your parenting and in your marriage and in your work relationships and as an in-law or
Oh, yes. There's
so
so
helpful. So
much.
we need to explore this some more. So, but anyway, for today, I want to thank you so much, Julie Greene. You're precious. I am
Oh,
so glad that I've learned so much from you as far as the Enneagram goes and some other things too, for sure. So thank you so much. You're a doll, and I appreciate
have
you very much.
a great day. Okay. Bye.
Bye.